Latest on the story, let's go live to our reporter Linda Mnisi. A very good evening to you, Linda. I see literally that the sun has set and you've been there for quite a while now. But what has been the progress on the ground, the outtake from today as far as compliance is concerned?
Well, Tammy, you spoke about the Transport Minister, which we saw yesterday here in Soweto, going into Rea Vaya bus stations, basically monitoring the level of, adherence to the lockdown regulations, saying he wasn't really pleased about what the Rea Vaya bus station has implemented. But right now I'm outside the Dobsonville Mall. You remember that at the beginning of the lockdown, a number of people would flock to this particular area to purchase essential goods. But in light of all the measures that have been put in place, including curfew, we're seeing quite a little less people here in the area. The area is usually packed around this time, but what we're seeing is a low number of people that are traveling, Tammy. Also, transport moving around. You'll remember that, transport or public transport has been given another grace period of an hour, meaning that by 8 o'clock, there shouldn't be anyone moving around in the country. But if you look at the stats, the Premier says he's quite worried about the emerging hotspots in the country. Those are, of course, the townships. If you look at the stats, they show us that Gauteng has about over 2,000 cases, and nearly 1,500 or over 1,500 of those cases have recovered. But if you also look at the breakdown of the sub-districts, as Johannesburg remains the epicenter, areas like Doornkop, Soweto, Dobsonville and Protea Glen are of one of the critical, locations in the province that the Premier says are developing some kind of, a trend that shows that there is, of course, an increase and they're becoming hotspots. This, of course, with other townships in the country. The Premier says it is quite, worrying that they're seeing an increase in the number of cases in these provinces, given that the virus could easily spread. At the beginning of Gauteng recording its first case, areas like Wynberg, Sandton, Orange Grove and Houghton were and still are the epicenters when we look at sub-district. But he says we're seeing a geographical change, and that, of course, is worrying, Tammy.
You're at the Dobsonville Mall, and that traditionally is quite a busy mall. How is it looking like? I do see some cars behind you, but are people readying themselves to go home, or does it look just like any other day pre-lockdown?
Well, Tammy, it's quite strange. As you mentioned, this is usually one of the busiest areas in this side of the township. But what we're seeing here, Tammy, is the last few cars that are inside the mall. People are preparing themselves to go back home. In fact, the gates of the mall are closed, and the only one that's remaining is the one that allows people to leave the mall. It clearly indicates that there is some level of adherence and that the mall is really strict when it comes to, that curfew. Some of the people that are inside, we saw earlier on, were people that were waiting for transport to take them home, as of course it is the end of the work week. So it seems as though there is, of course, some level of adherence to the lockdown regulations, and that people are starting to listen. This area is never this quiet, but what we're seeing is just cars and just a few people on the road, indicating that they are aware of the curfew and that there is, of course, adherence.